Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Case by Case, episode, 13? Wow, episode 13 already. We have a lot in store for you today. Welcome, everybody, into the chat. And I have to start off with an apology for last night. So what had happened was I was working up here in the office and trying to rearrange the room because, yes, I have another grandbaby on the way. And my daughter got a lot of stuff at her baby shower. She got multiples of things. So she's given me some things like pack and plays and all that sort of thing. So I'm completely equipped here at the house for when I need to steal him or my granddaughter. I'm fully equipped. So in the middle of working through all of this, I was sitting here also at the desk, taking breaks, and I was trying to create thumbnails to get ahead for the upcoming weeks because I'm trying to do at least one more additional live a week than what I've been doing now that I've switched departments at work and things are kind of calming down there. Anywho, so what happens with my thumbnails is when I create them, I go into StreamYard, and you kind of have to go through the process of setting it, picking a time, which last night when I was setting this, and the purpose of me doing this was because what happens is when I wait until the last minute to upload a thumbnail, I put all of the information into StreamYard, and when I go to submit it, instead of it giving me the opportunity to upfrontly adjust the size of my thumbnail, it deletes all my information that I already put in. So I was trying to get ahead of the game, and yes, that is a live I'm going to do this week. So excited that there were so many people interested in that. But what happened was I created it. I had to adjust the size so that it would be utilized as a thumbnail, and then I canceled it. So it should have only been a live stream for about 15 seconds, but apparently, and this is the second time it's happened to me, it does not delete from YouTube itself. And I did check YouTube, but I think other creators can testify to the fact that when you create a live stream in StreamYard, and then you immediately go to YouTube to see how it looks, that you have an upcoming stream coming, there's a delay. It doesn't necessarily post immediately. So that's what happened. It wasn't supposed to be a live, and I'm so sorry. But I am so genuinely touched by so many people who were reaching out like, are you okay? Mother of Dragon, Streets of Bakerfield, Kathy, Keith. I mean, I woke up, I was asleep and normally my ringer's on and I don't know what happened. Somehow my ringer was flipped down and I woke up this morning and I was like, oh shit. So I didn't mean to leave everybody hanging. I'm so sorry, but I appreciate the love, the concern, and everybody just, looking out. But I look forward to doing that live later down the road. Secondly, what I want to talk to everyone about is at the end of this month, I will be going on a 10-day vacation, and while I'm on that vacation, I will probably be uploading some shorts and maybe some small videos. I will constantly be in communication through the community page and on my X account. So I won't be completely out of the loop. Thank you, Jess. Oh, and by the way, Jess, everybody send up some prayers for Jess. She lost a family member. She lost her aunt. So make sure that you give her special hugs and send up some prayers for her family, who's probably in a lot of pain right now. So we go on an annual vacation every year. So I will be gone from the 31st until I'll be back on the 10th, which means August 4th, Monday, August 4th, we will not have a vault episode because I will be out of town. However, I will plan, and I will be working with all of my cohorts who help me with everything that goes on this channel. This is not a sole propriety event here. I have a ton of people that I can't thank enough who send information, offer information, help do things behind the scenes, all the way in South Carolina, all the way from Georgia, across the country in the UK. Quester, everybody, I just can't thank you enough for, just all of the support, because this is a lot. And I do have a full-time job, so I work 24 hours a day on this stuff, behind the scenes, little by little. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up that we will not have an episode on the 4th. And the reason that we're doing I've converted the vault episodes to Mondays is because Quester has now become a solid figure in this review of the case. And he's in the UK, and based on the time difference, this works for both of us. So I will return with the vault episode on August 11th, and I promise you it will be an extensive one, because while I'm at the pool or at the beach, I will be researching and working and compiling and putting things together. Let me see, what else do I have to say? The other thing that I wanted to say is I have been working behind the scenes on a kind of a very special project that will not be coming available until September. And I'm not ready to disclose what it is, but just know that it's going to be beneficial to this community, case by case, and everything that case by case has begun to encumbrance, but also going forward on this journey of wrongful convictions, post-conviction relief, habeas corpus, my legal contacts who I can reach out to. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not stupid by any means, but I'm not a lawyer. And I rely heavily on getting legal advice from some very special people, not just one, not just Osbrook, but there's multiple. But I am working on a project that I think that we're all going to really benefit from and enjoy. And that will be coming out in September. So stay tuned. Now, back to today's business. Welcome everybody in chat. Love you guys. So glad you're here. Sorry about last night. I'm not going to go through one by one because I've talked enough. Today is going to be all about, the first half of the live today will be all about Deer Creek. And I have a special guest, Great Lakes Fungi, which those of you who are on X are familiar with, and her information and her, and she's amazing. And Quester is with us as well. And we are going to be going through, Great Lakes has prepared a 40-page presentation for us, which is, it goes deep. I hope everybody here stays in tuned, and I will take, I would say about every 15, 20 minutes, I will take intermittent breaks from the presentation, and we will answer questions. And then after Fungi's presentation and discussion, we will do a, we can recap, we can answer questions. Quester and Fungi will be available to answer any questions about the last several episodes of the Vault. Anything, I would like to hear from all of you about if you feel like we're missing information or we're overlooking information. And again, we are not always going to be 100% accurate in what we discuss on this channel. That's first and foremost a fact, because of the amount of years that have gone by since this crime occurred, the plethora of information out there, and deciphering it all. And there are things that we come across that we feel is factual, and then one of you great people point out to us that we're wrong. So we will, if we are proven wrong, hey, thank you. We'll fix it, because we need to get rid of the waste. We need to get rid of all of the things that don't affect the timeline, the girls, and what transpired on the 13th and the 14th of February 2017. So don't feel like you're hurting our feelings by pointing it out. In fact, I have a subscriber who she believes that Rick Allen is guilty, but she's very respectful. She's constantly questioning and posting, and we've been very respectful in responding. And it gets a little frustrating at times, because it's, we're so starkly stood in our stance of this was handled the absolute wrong way, and that's not what our justice system is supposed to do. But we welcome it. I will tell you that. So love all of you guys, and I am going to bring Quester on, and then I will bring on our guest. Hey, Quester.
Hi, Amy. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm fine. A little bit warm, but fine. You?
Same thing. That's why I'm not showing my face today. We had, after this weekend, I literally got way too sunburnt out in the pool. So I'm not going to show my real face because I look like a lobster. But do you want to inform everyone in chat what we're working on for episode 14?
Yes, why not?
Yeah.
One thing that's very rarely mentioned is the scanner conversations from the law enforcement, ISP, etc., and what exactly was going on at the time. And we're working through all the messages, etc., that we can find, and this is pretty hard because a lot of them seem to be being scrubbed at quite a rate now. But the general look of it is that we haven't been told everything that happened, have we, Amy? There seems to be quite a lot quite a lot was going on that doesn't fit the story. So we'll be plowing through that.
Right. So episode 14 is going to be another detailed conversation about the movements of law enforcement, the timing of law enforcement on the 14th. Everybody right now needs to bow down and thank Quester, because one of the audios so I've downloaded all of the scanner audio that I can find that's available. However, there is one piece, which is from the morning hours of February 14th, that has vanished. It's been scrubbed, but they weren't counting on someone like Quester to take detailed notes of that audio, which we have, and we will be presenting on the next episode. And I'm going to try to work on a map to basically pinpoint the movements of law enforcement, and based on testimony that we know, when the transcripts come out, it's going to be even better. Searchers, law enforcement, pinpointing on the map where they were and when, because it is almost a factual, proven fact that the girls were not there on the 13th until the wee hours of the morning, the early hours of the morning of the 14th. And I just want to say this, that I've been very open about, I do not have a set theory of what happened that day. When I decided to publicly cover this case, it was after Rick was convicted. I've been covering this case. For everybody who thinks that I'm just new on the scene, that's not true. The early years, I followed the case, but I didn't start acquiring information because I was too heavily focused on the Stephen Avery case. But when I started acquiring information about this case, I was never open to the fact that the girls didn't cross the creek or the video wasn't real. However, all of the deep research that we've been doing, going over everything with a fine-tooth comb, I'm starting to like put my hands on my forehead and go, oh my goodness, this does not add up. And it's bizarre. And the phone data, going over all of the phone data with Quester, I'm a little taken back on the fact that this is a real reality. This could be a possibility, and that's a very scary thing when it comes to a case like this that's been so publicly publicized, that some of this stuff is being done, I mean, literally boldly, without any concern for any kinds of consequence. So I just wanted to put that out there. Quester, before I bring on Great Lakes of Fungi, do you have anything else to say?
No, I'm looking forward to hearing what Great Lakes has to say.
So I'm going to bring on our special guest, Great Lakes Fungi. She will give you a brief bio of her history, where she's from, and then we're going to get into all of her analysis of the terrain and Deer Creek, the water levels, and the possibilities or the difficulties of the girls crossing the creek. Hey there, Fungi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. A little nervous, but I'm ready.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. So you want to tell the chat and everybody listening a little bit about you?
Yeah. So I currently live in Michigan. For a little bit, I lived in the Upper Peninsula, and I actually owned 40 acres, which had a river with extremely similar topography to the surrounding Deer Creek area. I spent basically every day just documenting this with photographs. I run a nature account on Twitter. It's just feel good nature stuff. So you can see some of those photos there, but I haven't done those. I haven't posted any of those in maybe a year plus, but if you look back, you'll probably see those. But we'll be going over some of those photos today anyways. I got into this case actually not due to the nature aspect, but due to the sort of the Norse paganism aspect, because I'm originally from the Baltic area. I was born in modern, in what we call Kaliningrad today, so it's technically in Russia, but it's Baltic area, and so they have very similar pagan beliefs that the Norse did. So I got kind of interested in that, as well as the sticks at the crime scene, and the to see how like fresh they were, because I heard that they were cut very very straight. Wasn't like they were torn. So one of the things that I thought was interesting about the crime scene, I was like, all right, what kind of trees are at this crime scene? Because trees are really, really important in Norse paganism. For instance, I wasn't able to ID a ton of the leaves, but the one there was an oak leaf, and oak is one of those sacred trees because it's so tall in the forest. It would always have lightning striking it, so they would always associate it with Thor or even Odin in terms of Norse gods, or whoever the equivalent was in the region, basically. So that's kind of how I started getting into this, and then I kind of realized how similar my experiences were, and I was like, some things are interesting here about the terrain, and I kind of wanted to explain some of that stuff.
So do you, I know that we had talked earlier about your you did identify the maple tree. Was that? Let me ask you this, because I've been made aware that there originally had been an acquisition
Those
made.
oak-
Well, the oak tree, but there was an acquisition
Yeah.
made in the case, or a proposal made during the investigation, that to test the DNA of the trees. Are you familiar with any?
Oh,
Are you familiar with any? Well, first of all, I had no idea that trees actually carry DNA.
me neither.
Okay, well, it's a real thing, and it's a proven thing. Everybody can do a Cecil and Google it, but it is a real thing. But because of the fact that one of the branches looked to have been sawed, like a clean cut, they were wanting, somebody had requested we should do some DNA testing on these sticks to see if they are actually from this area or were they from another area. And I don't believe it ever happened. Hey, Luna. So yeah, I had never heard of the fact that trees actually had DNA, but they do. I looked it up, and it's a real thing, and it probably at this point wouldn't have been a bad idea to do that.
No kidding.
I know that there's no I don't believe that there's any electrical outlets. And let me go back up here. I just seen something it's going to really probably make me mad in the chat. Who just said that? Let me see. I'm scrolling through the chat. I just had seen a comment from somebody who was just recently in Delphi, and they said they put up fences with no trespassing signs. Can you elaborate? Where were the fences put up at? Because I'm planning a trip. I'm planning a very big trip, and I'm meeting up with some people there. We're going to do some serious measuring. We are going to do some reenactments and time logs and steps and all of that to confirm or disprove what we believe the phone data says. So I can't find that comment. So who dis says they did that a long time ago when they were doing the trail pavement and the end of the bridge. So are you saying that that's not recent? Or is this something that's been done recently? And like, where is it? Like, is it like, can you still walk out to the newer portion of the bridge? Is the pathway to the cemetery, that short left turn before you get to the bridge, is that blocked? The private property signs were always like nailed to the trees. Well, Jamie, I'm not talking about DNA from the girls. I'm talking about DNA of trees. Trees have DNA that you can systematically identify the wood. Yeah, the cemetery path is a private property. I have a couple of connections out there who will be able to help me get access. So I'm really looking forward to that, and being able to go out there and recalculate physically with video, with measurements, with stepping, all of that to provide. I mean, why not? Oh, okay. The fences between the trails and 300. So is that along the trails, or is it out there along 300? And what kind of fence is it? Is it climbable? That's what I want to know. when I was there in February, there was no fence. Last week, it's up. Did you happen to take any pictures of it, Lindsay? If you did, can you email them to me? So I have a game plan going forward. Okay. This is a brand new fence. What kind of fencing is it? If you have, did you get any pictures of it? If you did, just email them to me so I can see what I would be working with. We're gonna go forward here. So, Great Lakes of fungi. Can you? I'm going to pull up your presentation.
Yeah.
And do you want to give the chat a brief description as to why the terrain and the water levels and the kettles are why it's important and significant in this case?
Yeah. So, Great Lakes basically, it's it's got a lot of lakes. It's in Michigan alone, you can't go 5 miles without a fresh water source, like a body of water, a river, that kind of thing being there. So we have very low water or high. The water table is basically, it doesn't drain as quickly as it would in other places. So that's one big factor. The other factor is we have this glacial history, which means that we have a lot of rivers and a lot of streams, and they often will carve through the terrain. And you can kind of see that with Deer Creek. It's because when the glaciers are treated, they all melted and the water had to go somewhere. And so they also created, when they had some of these pockets of ice and stuff like that, they'd also create these things called kettles, which, based on the description at trial, I initially thought the crime scene was in a kettle, and it might still be, but it also could just be one of the a drainage lane, which, for all intents and purposes, a kettle is basically a depression in the ground. It's like a bowl. If you just imagine putting like a cereal bowl in the ground, that's basically a kettle, but it doesn't need to have all even sides. It's basically just a product of glacial melt and retreat.
Okay. And so what are you leaning towards the crime scene was in? Do you believe it was an actual
Probably
kettle?
Without seeing it directly, I believe it was probably a drainage. I'm leaning more towards drainage, but they have a very similar use, personally, to kettles that I've used them for. Mm-hmm. Would you like me to explain that? So,
yes,
because of the steep walls on the sides, they can often be used, and they're super effective for gun ranges, like forest gun ranges. And I have personally made a couple of these, and the reason that they're so effective is your bullet can't go and hit anyone. It's just going to go straight into the earth behind wherever your makeshift target is. And apparently there was a target found around there, and there were other bullets, spent rounds found there. So I believe that I'd like, if you had gone and looked at the walls of this depression, whether it be drainage or kettle, and there's pictures of this in kind of the presentation, you will find spent rounds embedded into the earth on those walls. If you use a metal detector, you probably won't find them because they're brass, but you'll find them. Just gotta look.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring up your presentation, and we will get started.
Yeah, I might even be able to skip the first couple. Kind of summarized it.
So I'm gonna enlarge it on the screen. Yeah, don't dox me. Bullets in a Honey Woods area, not possible. Absolutely. We are ridiculous to think that there were multiple bullets, unspent rounds laying around in that area.
To me, it's not out of the realm of possibility that that people would just go randomly shoot in this location. But it's also, to me, it's very. I mean, I hear people shooting literally every day in my backyard. I'm adjacent to state land, and it's just people shoot. So I mean, if you're out in a rural area, especially in the Midwest, people like to shoot, and it's not very alarming if you're in the right area.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to, okay, so I'll let you describe this map and this terrain that you have on your first page.
Yeah, so this is basically just a little history. We can see shows the glaciers basically a long time ago, many thousand years ago. They went this far. So we can see that they clearly went basically, let's say, 2/3 of the way down Indiana. And so that just gives us evidence, the fact that, okay, this is going to have terrain that's very similar to the stuff that I was at, where there was heavy glacial movement as well. And one kind of cool thing about glaciers is that they move a lot of rocks. So that's why you're going to see a lot of rocks, even though, even massive rocks. As they retreat, they leave them there. So some of these rocks that you're seeing could actually be from like parts of Canada, which is, I've always found that fascinating.
Yeah, that's a long way.
Yeah, so there's the description. Basically, you can see the image. It depicts glacial retreat and that. All right, anyway, so here's where the bodies were found. Everyone say hi to Ron Logan's dog. But you can see that there's a little bit of a downward sort of angle to both kind of in the distance and closer where this picture was taken. And it kind of looks like it's almost like a little drainage line that, it's just depression kind of like running down through the woods. And water during the snow melt, especially, it's going to all just go right there and then go into the river. So it's going to be moist for a long time. I mean, you're going to have this snow melt effect where the river's going to be higher, where there's going to be the water table is going to be oversaturated for several weeks, even after you don't see snow. I mean, it's all going to be there.
Okay.
So this is more on kettles, not 100%. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you saying something?
No, go ahead. No. I just switched screens.
So this is more on kettles. This is kind of like what my first assumption was, so I added this. But yeah, this is basically how kettle lakes form. A lot of the time they are in the form of a lake, so they will have water because that water has actually been left from glacial retreat. However, we do have dry kettles, which is what I initially thought this was. But we'll often see these kettles around rivers, and just because that's where the glacial movement was. And so it's just a little bit of history, so you kind of have an idea of where they can be several miles in size or like 15 feet wide. Kettles are super, they vary. That's why it's kind of hard for me to like tell which one's kettle, which one's kind of drainage at first. But yeah.
So in February of 2017, in the area where the girls were found, everybody described it as a bowl.
Yeah, that's why I kept thinking that.
Yeah, it does appear that it could be what you would consider a kettle, which, with the ridge line behind the area where the girls were found, there had been snow, and it all would obviously come downhill and possibly form, I guess, like a puddle in that bowl or kettle area, and then find its way to a drainage line out into Deer Creek. Would there be enough water and moisture, since the whole crossing of the creek issue, people believed that they did because the clothes that Abby had on were wet, but was it wet from crossing the creek, or was it wet from laying on a saturated wet ground?
It really just depends on if one of the issues is they were out there for at least, at least 6 hours is what I probably would say. And I mean, that's enough time to dry, what's facing top, because there's no leaves on the tree. So if it's at all sunny, I mean, the air's just going to dry it. So it's really, really hard to tell. But if she is laying on the ground, there is a very good chance that the leaves themselves, the ground underneath, would still be moist, especially if she's at the bottom of the kettle where all this water is accumulating.
Right.
And it will stay there until it drains either via a drainage channel or it goes into the dirt or the soil itself, and then eventually underground it makes its way to the river.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so here's a picture I took from our river, just kind of an area near it. As you can see in the distance, there's kind of like a complete drop off, a line where the trees end. That is the very steep ravine where the river began. And but what I'm showing here is the difference. You can see the difference in coloration of the leaves. And this is just a really great example of, this is a drainage channel. This is how leaves get saturated and the ground gets saturated. And I mean, this is pretty fresh, but it's going to be muddy. It's just in general, it's snowmelt is a very, very powerful thing in our region.
And you just brought up muddy, and
mm-hmm.
the girls weren't muddy.
Yeah.
I mean, Abby's jeans, which I'm just going to throw this out there. Libby's 5'4", she's 200 pounds. The jeans
mm-hmm.
that Abby is wearing in the crime scene photos appear to be a little big, but I would not believe that they're big enough to fit Abby. So that's always been a question that I've had in the back of my mind. But it's Abby's jeans on the backside that is more muddy than if she would have crossed the creek, even if Libby had on her clothes and trudged through the mud and the squish in the creek, climbed up the embankment. And there's also the possibility that the girls were already undressed and crossed the creek without clothes on.
That's what the state wants you to think.
Right. And it just seems, in the haste of the panic, how does one whole girl's entire clothes get left behind in the creek or thrown in the creek? And these appear to be the clothes that Abby has on appears to be completely not muddied. I mean, if you were clawing your way up the side of an embankment, that's obviously saturated because there had been snow. It was February. Water was, the creek was way over its normal height. It just seems very unreal to me.
Well, and another thing, this is what we'll talk about this in a little bit, is that you said the bed of the creek had this layer of sludge from agricultural runoff nearby. So if they have this layer of sludge and they were wearing jeans at the time, you're not going to be able to get that either the discoloration or just, there's going to be signs that they were wading through the sludge. I mean, right. That's a determinative factor. Even the shoes. I mean, just the creek alone.
Abby's Converse alone do not appear to have gone through sludge across the creek or climbed a wall. So I guess,
unless you washed them off.
I guess, they were washed off, or she carried her shoes and she lost her entire outfit, but Libby lost her shoes but kept her clothes clean away out of the water. Very disturbing. Okay, here we are.
Very interesting. Yeah, so anyways, here's another, for both drainage channels and kettles, the same general thing occurs with moisture. Everything drains into it. Eventually, it will lead to a large body of water. In this picture that you see right here, the river is basically behind me where I took this photo. And this area, though, it would be underwater, like in right after the spring melt. Like that's how much spring melt can do. What this also does is it causes a layer of moisture to build up under leaves, and even if it appears dry on the surface, a layer of leaf litter, if you just move it around, you can see it's going to be moist underneath, and it will cause you to slip and slide on steep inclines. Like, you have to know where to step, or you are going to slip. Like, it's just, it took me a long time to figure out the routes to go up and down on our land.
So with this area right here, this was to the right. This was to the right of the crime scene. Or I'm sorry, the crime scene was to the right. So when this camera turns around and you start to venture up.
Yeah. So we see there's a drainage path in there. That's where that kind of pathway, it almost looks like that's just natural drainage. You see that it's devoid of trees right there. There's trees on the sides of it, so that also tells us it's definitely just drainage. So where this person is walking, it is likely it's possibly, this is very slippery, or at least when in February it definitely would have been. Oh yeah, see, you can even see the moisture or the moist leaves here where they've been disturbed. So
yeah, I see them. The darkness.
You're gonna, Yep, that's mud that's accumulating. And the thing about mud is that it will stick to your feet. It will stick to the treads of your boots. It will make the treads of your boots literally stick into the ground. And so you're going to have, I just find it so improbable that they avoided leaving tracks on top of the leaves even, or, more disturbances. You would have had to have been there before and know where to step.
So someone like that,
cannot get
Ron Logan. Yeah, well, this person here,
someone who maybe is very familiar goes. No, go ahead.
Well, I'm noticing that this person is actually not walking directly in the pathway of where the water would be draining, but when he gets up here where you can see the darkness of the leaves, he's walking on the side.
Yeah.
This
because it's wet.
You see how he moves over to the side and walking over here? That's interesting. Mother of Dragons says, wasn't that an old quarry? I'm not sure.
There was an old quarry there, yes.
Yeah, but...
Oh, there was?
Yeah, but not where that is. It's slightly to the left of where they're walking.
And then so this is, I guess, once he reaches the top of this area here, this would be the top of, wouldn't this be like the top of the kettle or the bowl that the girls were found in?
Yeah, I presume so. I mean, thing about Great Lakes is they have a lot of ravines, kind of like in feeder creeks that are in little ravines that have carved them out. So it's kind of hard to tell which one this is exactly, but yeah. You'd have a pretty good vantage point.
Yeah. Okay. So, Quester, where was the quarry at?
It's, from what I can see of that video, it would have been slightly to the left of it.
Okay. Because that drainage segment right there that we just watched, I believe to the left, shortly to the left of that is where the property line ends. That the right side, that drainage area and where the girls were found, that was Ron Logan's property. The left side of that was Mears. So the quarry would have been on Mears' property?
I think it would have been a bit on both, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I know the property line is right there, somewhere in that divided space. That was another thing that struck me odd about what Reese Davis said when he described Ron Logan's confessions that Ron Logan had the girls taken out to the edge of his property. So, okay, we'll continue on.
Yeah, so basically, if you look at Google Maps, this is a little just advice. If you guys want to do some looking, like, you will be able to tell that the thicker trees, the tree lines that you can see thicker on Google Maps, especially in the winter, the conifers, you will be able to see that's where the top of the ridge lines are, is going to be where all these conifers are and stuff like that. So you'll see, just it just helps to know how to look. And so, and there will be no vegetation basically within the bottoms of these drainages. So yeah, so this is just a great illustration of it.
Like no plants, no grass, just leaves and dirt.
Yeah, not where the water accumulates. Like there's not going to be nearly as much. Here's you might recall testimony from the trial about a disturbance found by one of the searchers where it looked like someone had slipped. Well, that just tells me that absolutely this was still wet. There was still lots of moisture under these leaves, and it was absolutely a hazard for slipping. So only someone familiar with that spot is going to navigate without slipping, because they often look like they're the best places. These drainage pathways, they often look like they're the best places to go, but they're also the most slippery routes. Being handcuffed would also be a really, really big impediment for someone traversing up or down one of these pathways, because in my experience, it is very useful to hold on to trees themselves, even, for stability. So as we said, damp mud will cling to boots, create impressions of the ground, leave shoe impressions on them. My picture is my dog after she has rolled in leaves. You can even kind of see some of her footprints. The snow melted weeks before this. You can even see some small shoots of green on the ground. That's how long it was. So yeah, this is just kind of an example of just how easy it is to see disturbances in the ground if you know what to look for.
Okay, I'm going to pull up a document that Quester just sent. And Quester, do you want to describe what we're looking at?
Sorry, was that me you were talking to?
Yes, sir. I was this guide, the Indiana Geologic Field Conference that you sent me. You have some things in here underlined. Do you want to explain what we're looking at?
Yeah, I put this on basically to assist the conversation at the moment, as you were talking about the quarry, which is often called the gravel pit as well. I've sent you a map of the gravel pit as well, by the way, Amy.
Okay.
But I thought this information would help with the discussion with Great Lakes. So it gives a bit of information on what the soil is like, what the surrounding ground is like, etc., etc. So it's more to help her get an idea of what this area is like.
So just a rule of thumb is that the types of soil that absorb the water best are going to be sandy. Anything that's really sandy. The stuff that absorbs it the worst is clay. I had a lot of clay along my river, but we did have some areas where it was just really rich, loamy soil, and that's when you're going to have all that mud, and that's when it becomes a problem.
So on this map, I see where the gravel pit is. It's literally not too far from the crime scene. Now the greenage, the green coloring on this map, what does that indicate? Does that indicate saturation of water around the Deer Creek, or what does the green area indicate?
From what I can understand is it's the foliage. It's the strongest foliage areas, but
Okay.
but
Let me see
if that
here.
is so, it's interesting that there's a non-foliage area where the crime scene is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's completely white.
Yeah.
Also
And that,
depends on when this was taken and like what the logging history is here too. So we don't know how old a lot of these trees are. So it might have like this survey might have been done at a point where there was a lot less trees around the river, and it might just reflect those trees.
but if it's been within the last 15, I would say 20 years, it's a good chance that where the crime scene was, there isn't foliage because it was an area where, and it almost seems like it would be impossible to think that the water wasn't draining there because how high that the backside of that bowl that the girls were in was very high, and
it had to have. Yeah, it's going to go somewhere. It's going to go down.
Right. So I would agree that that's probably an area where water accumulated before draining down into Deer Creek. So, okay.
You can probably date this map by looking at the rail line, as it shows it's still being in use.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the rail line. Yeah.
The rail lines. When was it?
Oh, I know.
I found a lot of these surveys were done like in the 1950s or so. At least the ones I've looked at, but it could be different for Indiana.
I think, didn't the rail line out there run up until like I want to say it was like the late 70s.
I think it was in the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have a video. I actually have a video up on my channel where an individual literally walked the whole entire mown-on train line and all the way to the bridge. And it's interesting because where it used to travel, I mean, it went right through town, and it's just a good watch. But I think the rail line was working up until the 70s.
And one thing I can say from experience is that 50 years is enough time for an entire forest to grow. The last picture that I showed of that drainage creek, that forest was not there. That was a blank field about 50 years ago. The neighbors that we had lived there since childhood, and they were pretty old then. They said that was just a field with apple trees at one point. And so that's how much a forest can grow in 50 years is all. It's just for reference.
Well, Mother of Dragons and Streets of Bakerfield, Mother of Dragons says that the rail line was used all the way up until the late 80s. And Streets of Bakersfield said CSX stopped using the rail line in 1987.
Jeez.
So if that's the case, then this map is actually fairly recent.
If it was taken that, we'd have to see. I could definitely source it for you. I can do that later.
Okay. All right.
These things are usually well documented.
Let me pull this down and pop this back up.
Yep. So, yeah. So anyways, here's a example of where we put our shooting range in the forest. This is an actual example of where we did it. And right behind me in this picture, about 20 or so yards, there's a river right behind me. Like it's the embankment and everything. So it just showcases why they're very, very good natural shooting ranges.
Well, and even at the crime scene, that where this shooting range is depicted on this picture, the wall of land behind where the girls were found was even 3 times as steep as this.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So here I took these. This is a picture of the same spot taken from the Monon Bridge, where you can see the just sheer difference between seasons. And the top one's clearly in summer, and the bottom one is likely in early spring, because we can't see any green shoots, and the leaves on the ground are not vibrant at all. So that tells me that they haven't recently fallen, and this probably was after snow melt. So you can just see the difference. That sandbar isn't even there. Rivers can and will change. It's a completely different place, like depending on the season. It's kind of cool, actually.
These are two drastically different water levels.
Yeah, it is amazing how much a river can and will fill up, and how quickly it can change too. But I had no idea until I was on a river for 365 days a year, and I just took pictures every day, and it was wild, man.
So I like your comment down here.
But you can also see these steep embankments.
You can also see the what?
You can also see some of the steep embankments, and because of all this water rushing in there, it's going to carve these embankments and make them even steeper sometimes. Like every year, it's just going to have that process. Oh, yeah. And so I asked the question at the end.
Yeah. Why didn't
anyone ask? Oh, why didn't anyone ask Carl Abbott about the conditions of the river? Because he was on the canoe. I would love to have known. Okay, were you having a hard time swimming upstream? Was it powerful? Or was it? Were you worried at all? Was it? How high was it? Were you thinking? Were you running into? We call them kayak bumpers. Were you running into any rocks underneath your kayak, or that kind of thing, or any logs?
Well, and for anyone who doesn't know, Carl Abbott lives upstream from Ron Logan, and he was actually canoeing that day and claimed to have seen the young bridge guy, and his daughter was also reportedly out on the trails. And Carl Abbott also owns the funeral home in Delphi, and I've recently been told that he is related to the Mears. So
I believe one of the girls was at that funeral home too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe so. I'd have to double check that.
Radar, who's a local, she says that Deer Creek was almost 4 feet deep from snow melt at that time.
Well, our calculations are going to be conservative, but I like that information because that is kind of consistent with it.
Belly May, no, Carl Abbott admitted to being in a canoe, and he was traveling upstream, not downstream. So he would have been a good source of information when it came to, the water level and how, what was it, rapid, how fast it was flowing. But he admitted to being out there.
I mean, spring is when you're going to have the most logs drifting downstream and everything. I mean, this is a little story about the area that we were in. Every spring melt, there would be logs drifting down. It was called the Ontonagon River. It was the largest river that flowed into Lake Superior. And so there was a bridge that would go into town. And every single spring, underneath this bridge, it would jam with logs, and they would have to use dynamite to remove the obstruction. And so it's just there's going to be so many things that you can't see underneath the water.
So Radar says the water was moving fast, and Street says
yes.
Rabbits and the Mears all came from the McCains. Well, we'll be doing, we have some new insertions into the timeline that will be coming up probably in the next vault, where we discuss some corrections and we get into the audio scanner from law enforcement. But there are some things that have came out that solidify a couple of things that we're going to discuss later on. So radar says it was 3.5 to 4 feet deep. The temperature was 47 during the day, below freezing that night.
Yep. That's very similar to information I have. So I appreciate that confirmation right there.
Okay, well, this picture right here is a good one. I mean, I just like the fact that you can see completely the changes by season. And I mean, the bottom picture does look similar to the images that we've seen from the helicopter the day of the search, where the rescuers were in the water, and it looked like it was at least waist deep, if not deeper in some places.
So here's a picture of sort of the same area, but below the bridge. I believe this is the bridge of the kind of when the snow melts. So it's not all melted, so it's not as high as it will be, but you can see it's already pretty decent. Anyway, so from a gauge that was upstream a bit, we know that the water was measured at 574 cubic feet per second. And so we can also express that in CFS. So 574 CFS, which I might be using, kind of interchanging that later down. So I just know how.
For us math dummies, what does that equivalent to, the 574?
I don't have a good comparison for you, like written down, or I can look up something if you want me to, and I can Cecil search it real quick.
So is that a measurement of the actual? Is that a measurement of the depth, or is that a measurement of the flow?
Oh, yeah. So that's the discharge rate, which basically, if you take a section of river, so at this point it was taken from an 85-foot wide section of river that was measured at 3.4 feet deep. And so that's how they got that measurement. And so it's just basically the amount of water that passes through that point, that measured point, per second.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. That's helpful. And that would increase as this ice melts, correct?
Absolutely, as well as the depth. Yeah.
Because I don't believe there was any snow or ice still visible that day, but it had been snowing. I mean, and even if it hadn't snowed, it would more than likely have rained. So that all contributes to that flow factor.
Yes, big time. So this is a little bit of a dark image, but hopefully you guys can see it. So this is the route roughly from the end of the high bridge down to where they probably would have gone. It's just a Google Earth image I took, and it depicts in spring. I actually learned that this was taken on the 2nd of the February 11th of 2024. But I also looked back at images from 2017, and I determined that the river was of very just similar shape in the same spots. But I only had summer pictures of that, so I didn't want to use those. But we can see it's a decent representation of what it would have been that day.
Okay. No spots of green.
Color and foam. Yeah, well, and then the clothes would have been found clothes would have been found kind of, I think about right where the D in Deer Creek is, kind of around that area is what I've read. So, so that's kind of gives us an indication of where the state thinks that they went. So that's what I went with. I was like, all right, let's go with their theory, see how plausible this is. All right. The sides of a river can be very, very steep. So getting down isn't as much of an issue as getting back up on the other side. Because getting back up is, one, you're going to be a lot colder, you're going to be a lot more wet, but two, it's just you're working against gravity there, and it's obviously the sides of the river are going to be slippery from the snow melt. Everything just goes down. It's just general rules.
Okay.
So my thing was I need to identify a potential place that would have been traversable on the north side, basically based solely on the satellite image. So basically to do this, I just brightened up this Google Earth photo to kind of show the contrast a little bit better. In the next slide, it will show that, the brightened version.
Okay. Now, is this an area? This is a photograph from Deer Creek up here at the top.
I looked up. Yeah, I'm assuming that's Deer Creek. All indications when I looked it up was that.
But are you in belief that the elevation change on the phone would have been, because it doesn't align with the movements of the phone. We're not saying the girls, we're saying the phone, because we can't clarify if the girls had the phone with them. But I would think that this embankment, even though it's a steep embankment, it's not two elevation changes.
No, I mean, there might be some parts that might have been, but I think that there's enough conflicting evidence with the phone data that we bring into question, did they even cross the creek? But what I'm just doing is I'm going to go with the state's case and assume that it happened like the state's case, so I can say, okay, what's the feasibility of them being able to even cross this creek at this point? And so for that, I just needed to identify a good place where they could go up.
Okay.
So here you can see the edited sort of high contrast image of the creek. Same exact one, just edited a little bit. Same exact one as the one that we saw earlier. And so based on my experience, and this photo on the bottom is one that I took along our river, these drainage embankments, they will have lanes that just go straight to the river like this. And these are the best spots to come up because they're kind of nice, even slopes. And I mean, we even saw it in that video. So this is FYI, this is not Deer Creek. I just want to reiterate that, the one on the bottom. It's just an example of the only spot I could ever get up in one part of the river.
So, I mean, I wonder if they crossed the creek, they could have, but that would have meant traveling in the water upstream to get to that point.
That's a huge issue.
If they would have came, and then you have to factor in that you've got people on the bridge after them. And here, I'll pull in this photo one more time because I want you to look at it too. I want you to see if there's, this might even be a drainage channel coming down from the bridge area. So hold on, let me see if I can pull it up.
Just in general, I guarantee you the area underneath the bridge is probably going to be deeper just because they have to bury the supports. Like that story I shared about the bridge up in Ontonagon, where they had to dynamite it it's got to be, it's got to be really strong to withstand those clogs.
So
what are we pointing at here?
So this is the area. So when you come down, the hill on the south end of the bridge, you immediately land upon private drive. Then there's another hill, which you see here in the foreground, that they would have had to have come down. Now there was a belt that was found right here in this area where the arrows are pointing. But you can see that if there's 3 people, bridge guy and the 2 girls, standing down here in this area, it's wide open. They could have been seen by somebody on the bridge. And then you see this little, there's actually it's like a fork of lanes traveling down to the bottom of the screen that leads to the creek. But they would have either had to have gotten to the creek's edge and walked north to cross a good distance north to cross, which is going to put them closer and closer into eye view of people on the bridge, in order to cross to get up that one big channel that I played the video of. Or did they realize, I mean, I'm thinking of 2 girls, terrified. They're doing what they're told. They're scrambling. They're going. And once they get across the creek, they realize, well, shit, we can't get up here. And they start moving upstream against the current to get to that drainage. So I know that you're going to talk about that, but that's
what I'm. Oh, sorry. What I was seeing in that photo was, okay, we didn't have any large mat of leaves there. We had just grass. So you're probably actually going to see like foot imprints if people were traversing that, like off to the side, especially off like kind of the beaten path area. If people are in grass and it's damp, it usually leaves kind of a little impression. Now, I don't know if it would, if it would have remained there for how long, but it's mud and it's grass. It's not leaves there, so that's kind of an interesting, because that can be it could change, like it just, when you're, if you think about how if snow melts, grass is it's all matted down right afterward, so it's there's no leaves, we can tell.
Don't dox me. It's so you can say factually, Mike Patty was in a canoe that night. I have photographs of him putting the gear in the canoe and him loading up to get in the canoe with a fireman that Becky Patty claimed was never even a part of the search team, that he stayed at the fire the whole time. He's with Mike Patty when this is taking place. And I believe that is in episode 1 or episode 2 of The Vault. I have photographs of that. So he was in a canoe that night. And reportedly, when I say at night, I want to say that he reportedly got in the canoe at around 4 a.m., if not earlier than that.
Oh, okay.
When he was supposed to have been at home by the stories, yes.
Yes. Which no one's going to fault him for being out there searching.
That's an interesting timing.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah. And it's just, it's really unfathomable how much information, when you go through this stuff and you put it on a grid or on a graph and you look at the timing, why the defense did not focus more on this timeline, because that is where this whole case gets blown apart. It's unreal.
It's visuals even would have helped.
Yeah.
So in this slide, basically, we can easily see, based on the discoloration of the soil right in the circled area, it's a completely different elevation right there. So it's kind of a drop off, and you can kind of even see a little bit. It's kind of like a tail almost going into the woods. That's where the drainage. That's where you can see a drainage path. And in the next slide, you can. I've highlighted the exact spot, so it's even easier for you to see. Just to show, and it's kind of by these sandbars, which we will get to the sandbars. Not entirely sure if it was too deep for the sandbars at this point, if they were even there, because rivers will change year to year, but especially the beds of the rivers. But I did factor them in at some point in the following slides, because we're going to get just some math. So please bear with me. I also hate math. I know you probably do too, unless you're my husband, because he's crazy. Anyways, yeah. So just general rule of thumb when crossing a river, anything more than waist height is going to cause a lot of resistance. And if you're an artist, you probably know, like, the body is every part of the body is a certain number of heads long or whatever. If you've ever done sketches of people, maybe you haven't, but either way, it's usually about 40 to 45% of your total height is where about your waist is going to be. So for 5'4" girls, it would have been maybe around 2 feet 3 inches. And with that gauge measurement that we had earlier of 3'4", that would be probably around their chest area, which is kind of significant because that's one of the areas that produces the most heat in your body. And your center of gravity, it's way above it. So this is going to be some serious resistance that they're feeling. And coupled with that river sludge too, I mean, you're going to have a hard time even lifting your feet. It's just, my parents live on a lake with kind of something similar in one section of that lake, and it will take my shoes off if I'm in a certain spot. It's so deep, it sticks. It's just, there's so much resistance.
Well, looking at this picture, I'm trying to imagine the flow of the water, which as it hits your body, it splashes upwards. Plus I'm assuming most people would be crossing in this frigid water with their arms up, trying to navigate across. Because some people don't believe that the water level was this high. But so we can look at this in two different ways. Were the girls nude crossing the creek? And how is that possible with carrying their shoes, their clothes, and I have to say it, phones, because I absolutely believe Abby had a phone. But even if you want to believe that Abby didn't have a phone with her, how did Libby's phone make it across without being at some point underwater?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been here, and the water is, and I've been here in the several times that I've been, it's been in the fall. And at that point, I mean, the water itself in the shallow areas, it is complete sludge. It's like green, algae, slimy, dirty. Ooh. I mean, I can't imagine trying to walk across it with shoes on, and it would be, and it's full of rocks at the bottom. So even going across it barefoot, it would probably even be harder because you're feeling like you're cutting up your feet.
Well, I mean, even if you have nice smooth rocks, large rocks, it's going to be slippery as all hell, especially with that sludge. I wasn't even thinking about the sludge when I wrote that part down, but just from based on experience, if you just even have a river with rocks underneath it on the ground of it, the riverbed, it's slippery, man. The first time I crossed our river, I was wearing shoes, and I still ended up with a ginormous bruise from falling. But yeah, so anyways, I just want to point out that I did eyeball this measurement, so it might not be exactly correct. I wanted to be conservative.
Amy?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Do you recall the picture I sent you of the buggy crossing the ford?
The buggy crossing the what?
Ford, F-O-R-D.
No, I don't.
Right. I'll send it to you again because it's got
Okay.
to you can perfectly see what the river bed is like in it.
Oh yes, I do remember that. But yeah, you'll have to send it to me. That's why, because I'll have to
Yeah.
go search for it.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's obviously
I do
years
remember
old,
now.
but it gives you a good idea of what the bed is like. I'll send it to you.
Okay. All eyes. And that 8 a.m. could be the right time that he was hopping in the canoe. The photos that I have are not time stamped, but it's still dark. It's still very dark in the pictures.
One thing the query made me think about was, I know on our river, it used to be around where there was an old logging camp. So they had some old logging trails. And specifically at a certain part of the river, it was made a little bit easier to cross because of that. I'm not sure if there are any signs of that around Deer Creeks for the query, because I don't know how the stone was transported out. Was it transported via a vehicle? Was it transported, maybe put on a boat and floated downstream? So I'm just kind of curious about that, because that could also, that might also just tell us a little about history, and I guess as far as, I don't know, just the area around exactly where they were found.
Okay, let me see here. Oh yeah. Oh wow. So I'm going to pop this up on the screen. This does give you an idea of what's under that water. From years ago, and I'm assuming it's only accumulating more. Very rocky. And there's the bridge in the background.
That is just like the river we had. Like, that is 100% exactly reminds me just all those rocks and terrain.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of sharp edges.
Oh yeah.
And sliding off the rocks, especially in a panic, and if you're nude, you're barefooted, or you're trying to carry your clothes and your belongings. The end result
so you might have some extra blood spots.
The end result doesn't matter.
Some cuts on your feet.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and if there is the sludge layer underneath it, then it's just so hard to get that crap out of there, out of your clothes. I can speak from experience. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Dry season. Yep. It looks beautiful though, I'm sure.
It is. Oh my gosh, it is so pretty out there. It's so. I mean, it really is a beautiful area. Like I mean, I'm not going to lie. I could live in Delphi. It's so quaint, and the town itself is just so. It's adorable to me, and I mean, I could live there. I really could. And that's another reason that this whole thing here doesn't let me sleep.
Surreal.
Right. Okay, where'd my thingy go here? Okay.
All right. So I think we are about to get into the math.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so here, just stick with me, guys, because I hate math too. So I tried to make this as easy, and I wrote out every single step as possible, like as easy as possible. I wrote out every single step. If you need to review it, don't worry about it. I had my husband even check it, the math and everything too. So let's just put it that way. Anyway, so there is a weighting rule of 10 that people who like to, fly fish or, just trout fish in streams like that, they will use to determine if a river or a crossing is too dangerous for a grown adult who is 6 foot, 180 pounds to cross. So we're going to just kind of put up some numbers here just to kind of showcase this. We're going to assume that a crossing is 65 feet, and we'll take that gauge reading nearby, measured at 574 cubic feet per second, CFS. And we're limited in data regarding the depth. So we assume the discharge rate is constant, which is really consistent with how rivers work, because as you get downstream, unless it widens up or becomes far more shallow, or unless it widens up or gets a lot more thin, I'm sorry, not shallow, then you're going to have the same discharge rate, and it will usually just increase as you go downstream. So the depth in this matters mostly for where Abby and Libby's center of gravity was, how high it was up on their bodies, and basically it matters mostly in that respect. So like after a certain point, after like 2.3 feet, I believe that's what we said that their waist would be at, it's kind of a moot point. However, we can kind of gauge how, if it does change in depth, based entirely on the width of the creek, because we know that downstream it will likely be 574 cubic feet per second unless it gets wider or thinner. Or I'm sorry, yeah, it will still be, I'm sorry, yeah, unless it gets wider or thinner, yeah, and we'll see that in a little bit. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so we apply the rule of 10 method. We do cubic feet per second divided by the width, and it equals the rule of 10 value. So 574 divided by 65 equals 8.83. So this is potentially navigable for a grown adult, but a girl of Abby's size, the threshold would be much lower, below 10. And so I just did kind of some, some scrap math here. So I said, all right, 95 pounds is 53% of our standard of 180 pounds. 5'4", 64 inches, is 89% of the rule of 10's standard 6 foot, which is 72 inches, is 6 feet. So we're just going to use the average of these percentages to kind of tailor our new rule to Abby, and we get 71, aka 7.1. However, I believe that this is very, very, very generous, and I think it'd be more around maybe like 6.5 to 6.3, maybe even 6. However, we're going to be really generous here, so just keep that in mind. I was doing a little more research last night that Abby, given her bone density, because she's not fully grown, it's not going to be as high as a grown adult. She doesn't have that much body fat, and we're only using Abby here because she's kind of like the lowest threshold that we need to get to, because everyone else is weighing more than her, or is a bit older, bigger than her, that kind of thing. So we need to just figure out what's the feasibility of the smallest person here. And so 7.1 is what I'm going to be using in our calculations as a kind of threshold. However, keep in mind it could be as low as 6. So if it wasn't obvious, 8.83 is greater than 7.1 or 6, which means Abby really could not have safely passed through this creek without a significant danger, challenge, and delay. It just would have been so difficult for her to even stay upright or not drift downstream for this scenario. But now, so in the next slide here, we'll be taking well, I just wanted to share a few general rules before we will be taking the an actual measurement from the creek here, from the exact crossing that I identified earlier. So this is just to help you guys, if you guys want to like look on Google Maps and measure it yourself using the measuring tool and then plug your numbers in, this is just going to kind of help you kind of figure out which direction these things might go. So what if the crossing width is greater? Then increasing the width of the crossing will lower the final value. So if we double it from 65 feet to 130, and we plug in our numbers, 574 divided by 130, our new width, we get 4.42, which is feasible. What if our discharge rate, or CFS, cubic feet per second, is less? Then that would also lower the final value. One sec. Sorry, I think I might have typoed here. The one of them, but 1,000.
To back up, the 4.42. Are we? Is that's what is the 4.42? Is that that's for the motion of the water?
That's our rule of 10 value to calculate it. So like if it's above 10, it's too great for a grown adult of 6 foot 180, but Abby's would be 7.1 or down to even 6. So it would be feasible for her if it was 130 foot wide crossing, which there are some of those in this stretch of river. I'm gonna on the second portion, I think I accidentally
was that
very much accidentally made a typo here. Okay. Yeah, I made or maybe I'd have to redo this. I'm sorry. But essentially, if yeah, I think just the final value is incorrect then. But either way, if we lower the cubic feet per second, it will lower the final value because that's basically the water is going slower. There's less water passing through over time in this space. So my apologies. I will edit. I can help you edit. Just remake that afterward. But my apologies, my friends. So now we're going to apply it to the actual crossing that we pointed out earlier. So if we go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. I have one more thing that I want to show you guys. Is it possible to easily find our safety threshold before we get to the actual river? I'm sorry. The point. So is it possible to easily just calculate the point where it becomes dangerous for a particular crossing? Yes, we can actually do this super easily. If we just use our threshold of 10, and this would be a grown adult, not Abby, then all you need to do is do the width times 10, and that equals the maximum amount of cubic feet per second that it would be safe, or it would meet to be unsafe at that point, because that would equal 10 that you crossing. So we just replace the 10 with 7.1, or lower if you believe that Abby would only be able to withstand a 6, because of the potential factors I said earlier. Then she would only be able to withstand 461 CFS. We can also easily calculate the width limit if we only have the cubic feet per second by just doing cubic feet per second divided by 10, or 7.1 for Abby, and that equals the maximum width, or the minimum width. Sorry, that equals basically the threshold of width that the river could be at this rate of flow that would be feasible to cross.
And you even said that the 7.1 threshold for Abby was being generous, that she could even be as low as a 6.
Yes.
Which
That's the important thing. I was looking at that last night, so I'm sorry I didn't add to the slide, but yeah, that's
okay. No, math is not my thing, but I'm following this, and it's making sense. Let me check and see. Let me check and see if the chat has questions.
Yes.
Let me see.
Someone said, "What if it is deeper in the middle?" It wouldn't necessarily change the discharge rate because the water has to go somewhere. And I will illustrate this later down in another slide. I actually had a visual, so you can kind of get a better idea. It's more regarding the sandbars, but you kind of get the same rules apply for, adding, like it getting deeper versus it getting shallower with a sandbar.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so let me pull that down. Okay, are we here, or are we on the next one?
We're right here on the one with the image.
Okay.
All right, so it was brought up to me in further discussion. You know who you are. That I would need to account for the fact that there are sandbars, and I agreed after I looked at it. So, general rule of thumb for rivers, just water in general, actually, is it has to go somewhere. So, if our cubic feet per second, 574, we know it's going to be like at least that, because downstream it's only going to gain more water. It's not going to, where else is it going to go? So we know that that's just a constant. So we're just going to use that as a constant. And if we have these sandbars, that means that the width of the river in total has technically changed because that water is being displaced by the sand. So as you can see, it gets deeper in some places, but if the stream gets wider and there's a sandbar, then it would also, as a stream gets wider, it also gets shallower, because basically there's more places for that water to go. As it gets thinner, it must get deeper because there must be a place for that water to go. So it's all being funneled in one spot. And consequently, when it is funneled in just a thinner spot like that, it will get faster because it is all being, it's all being funneled right there. So it's, you need to, so we know for sure that that's what happens. It's just a general rule. And if it gets shallower, it will get slower as well. Just general rules.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense. All right. So here's a summary of that information. Increased depth of water, more dangerous. Increased speed of water, more dangerous, obviously. The river opens and widens. Where sandbar occurs, it will be shallower and likely slower, aka safer. So there's the summary, just basic knowledge. All right. So which of these changes occurs with the sandbars at our special crossing that we pointed out earlier? Well, using this map from the trial exhibits, we can easily determine that the first option is not the case here, because we cannot see it significantly widening or thinning in the river width. So it will likely not change enough to significantly offset our discharge rate, so we can still use that in our formula. Basically, it's just there's not a big enough change in the river that it will impact this, so the water still needs to go somewhere within the width that we had earlier.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Is that going to be, so that's going to fall in like the 3.5 depth range, correct?
Yeah, so our gauge said it was 3.4, and that was a crossing of 85 feet. But the one that we are going to measure overall the crossing with the sandbar. So like if we pretend the sandbar is still water, that is it is 120 feet across. So while that might be, if we plug it in, that might actually be feasible, but difficult for Abby to cross. It's sorry. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I was asking about, I asked about the depth. I asked if this area where the bar is,
yeah,
in the exhibit, is that going to be in that?
Oh, yeah.
3.4 depth range?
Yes. So because it gets basically wider to 120 feet instead of 5 feet, where the gauge measurement of 3.4 feet in depth was, I'm assuming that the depth probably around here is going to be about 3 feet. Just because the water has to go somewhere. So if it gets wider, it's going to, like I said earlier, it's going to get shallower. And I hope that the illustrations were helpful enough. Basically, if you just imagine kind of like a cup or something, if you make the cup wider, the water inside is not going to be as deep. If you make that cup smaller, it's going to be deeper. Just basically same principle. All right, so here's where we get to the actual river. Woohoo! So if we look at potential places to cross using our sandbar theory, we run either into deep water that will be, if we calculated that the waist of the girls was around 2.3 feet, or 2 feet 3 inches, if we calculate that, but we believe that the water around here is still going to be at least 3 feet. That's still above where they are. Mm-hmm. But so we run into the issue that it is above or at their waists here, no matter what. But so if we're thinking about where we traverse, like we said earlier, it is harder to get up from the other side, or up, out of the water. And so I kind of use that topographic map from earlier, a couple different maps to kind of show, okay, here's in the green highlights, these green highlighted little spots here, that's going to be really steep. So that might be unlikely. And then I showed here's where it will get deeper because of the presence of the sandbars. And then I drew in arrows. Okay, here's some potential routes that would maybe make sense to try to cross right here, because I mean, as your natural inclination as a human is to find the spot that's like closest to the other side and try to cross there. Because you want to be in the water the least amount of time if it's super cold, or find what looks like the shallowest spot. So, but we kind of come into some issues here where no matter where we choose, the deep water is unavoidable. You must swim upstream, or it gets much narrower, which means it's going to be a greater strength than 574 cubic feet per second. And we will actually calculate what it will be on the most direct crossing, which is probably the most likely crossing because it's the most direct one.
So so basically the struggle was real, no matter which area of the creek they would have attempted to cross. They were going to run into deep water or run into a fast current.
And these crossings may not look that big on this Google Map thing, but I believe in the next slide, I've measured them on Google Maps. Yeah, so I measured a couple different routes here. Sorry, this probably should have all been the same one so you could see, but we're going to just focus on 1 and 5 here. So number 1, that's orange, and number 5, that is yellow. And then if we go into the next slide, you can see the measurements that I did. So now on the far left column, we're going to look at number 5, 65 feet. So that is 65 feet. Number 1 is 20 feet. So if we go back, go back up to the crossing picture, that number 1, that tiny little sliver, that's 20 feet. Okay, so that's,
wow.
Just think about that. Like, that's a way bigger. That's a lot.
That is a lot. And
this is the minimum crossing. This is the least, the crossing that'll give you the least amount of water. To cross. So that's why I was going to do all these, but I only did this one.
Okay, no, it's fine. It's very informative. So to say,
I just wanted to give you guys an idea because it can be very deceiving.
So 5. So if they would have went to the sandbar, it would have taken them. They had to cross 20 feet of water to get to the sandbar.
They'd have to first cross 20 feet.
Then they would have crossed the sandbar, and then they would have crossed 5 is 65 feet. And
that area, it also aligns with where I felt wasn't steep. So I kind of put it at a little bit of an angle, but it goes downstream. So that might help them a little bit, but still it's 65 feet.
And then if they would have, so they're either going to, so what if they would have like polywogged or went from one sandbar to this other sandbar? So number 4 is 40 feet.
I didn't attach them in the presentation, but I did calculate every single possible combination, and I just am choosing the one with the least amount of water. But I can go look at that right now. I have my spreadsheet right here, which is exactly the one that you want.
I do believe. I think that for the people who believe that they did cross the creek, I think that a lot of people think that they, I think that people thought it was a hop, skip, and a jump. Like they came off the creek.
Yeah, you could see it definitely wasn't.
and it wasn't. And but, if they would have, what is 7? So 7 is another 20 feet. So this really technically isn't, the girls, they would have had to have been in the water getting onto the first sandbar. And if they would have tried to have gone to the second sandbar, which would have been the shortest distance to the next piece of land, they still would have had to have crossed another 70 feet.
Yeah, so if we do 1, 7, and 3, those routes, then we would have gotten to 90 feet of water that you would have needed to wade through at least. Whereas our 1 and 5 is only 85. So that's the one I chose because it's like, all right, well, the least amount of time that you're in the water, that's the one that you're naturally going to try to choose. And also that's the one where we should just get the bare minimum because everything else is just going to be way harder.
Right.
So like I said, originally I was going to calculate the rule of 10 for each of these individual routes, but they all have that common factor that you must traverse into this deeper water to account for the sandbar's displacement. It was only necessary to do 1 and 5 because any other route would add more time and distance, which doesn't make sense in our freezing conditions, especially when you consider, that tight window.
But even so, you have to look at, I don't think logically these 2 little girls were looking at it. I think your choice, 1 and 5, appears to be the shortest distance. But I don't think.
I think naturally that's what you take.
Yeah, right. And unless you're 2 panicked girls, I could see them thinking the easier route was going from one sandbar to another, even though that would have put them. 1, 7, and 4.
Yeah, sorry, I said 1, 7, 3 earlier. Meant to do 1, 7, 4.
Either, I think the point I'm trying to make is that I think that the girls were encountering a stressful journey, and it wasn't just crossing the creek at ankle level to the other side. It was a lot more, it was a lot deeper. It was a lot further than what people may realize. And that changes the look of the quarantine, the clothes, the girls. Climbing up an embankment, they would have had their hands being wet, they would have had mud caked in their fingernails. And
yeah, I mean, what if they're handcuffed too or something together? I mean, it's going to be way harder to go up the embankment.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so sorry, I did fuck up a little bit on the one, but sorry about that. But it doesn't on the stuff that we're calculating. I got this checked. So once again, not super awesome with me. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And I'm just going to account for the sandbar here. Stick with me, I promise. The total width of the river at this point is 120 feet if we just do a cross section, including the sandbar. So from one embankment to the other, 120. And now we need to take crossing the number 1 there that I had right there, 20 feet. And then the number 5 I had there, 65 feet. So those are the numbers. Just put pin in those numbers. Those are the numbers we're going to be using here. First, we calculate the amount of river that must be crossed in the route, which is 85 feet, like we said earlier. And next, we answer the question, what percentage of our total crossing is actually the sandbar? So we take that 85, we divide it by 120, and then I put a 1 in front of that just so that we could get a positive percentage. So it's about 29.2% of the river at this crossing, would be the sandbar. So the next step is to figure out what 29.2% of our 574 cubic feet per second discharge rate is, because that will help us determine how strong the water that is being displaced is. And then we can add that to the 574, because it's going to be more. So remember, it gets deeper because it definitely doesn't get wider. So it must get deeper to account for the sandbar. Okay. So basically what we're going to do is we just take that 574, multiply it by our percentage, our 29.2, and that equals 167.61 cubic feet per second. But that is not, that's not what we add. We just got to do one more calculation. I promise it's the last one. And that is just to figure out, all right, because the sandbar goes in between our 2 crossings here, we have to individually tailor this displaced discharge and tailor it to each individual side of this crossing. So all we do with that, very simple, is we just figure out what percentage of the route's total 85 feet of water that will cross is in each of these sections. So for the number 1, we just do 20 divided by 85, and that is 23.5%. And then we do the same thing for number 5 right here, 65 divided by 85, and that's 76.5%. So now we just take that displaced number, that 167.61, and we multiply it by those percentages. And then in the next slide, we do that. And so we get 39.39 and 128.21. So what that tells us is we just add those numbers to 574, and that tells us that tells us the strength of the water on either side, and how it compensates for that sandbar being there. So it just tells us this is where the water, all that discharge of the water, just imagine as a cross section, that's where the water is going, and that added water is adding this much is adding this much strength flow to these sections.
So do these numbers in the CFS convert to a speed? We've got
maybe velocity.
Or velocity, yeah.
I'd have to double check that. Yeah.
I think
I'd have to double check that. Yeah.
So here we have 613 at the first crossing of the 20 feet, that would have been 7.2 when you were being generous and giving, what was it, a 7.1 for Abby?
Yep.
And she could really be as low as a 6.
Yeah.
So this was probably somewhat challenging for her.
It was definitely, like, it would have been dangerous for her. That's our threat. Like, it would have been it would have been dangerous. The second part of the crossing would have been dangerous for a grown adult because it's above 10. I mean, this part would have been hard. And so I kind of came to the realization, if we go to the next slide, it would have been just easier for them to literally have just crossed it where there were no sandbars. So I did the math here. Our discharge rate divided by our width, if, just assume, because let's say there are no sandbars, just completely through. We just take that section.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been feasible. However, we run into the temperature of the water being a huge issue, because if it is cold, and it's based on the air temperature, we can assume it was around 32 degrees, maybe a little above, maybe a little below. Very hard to tell. A lot of factors go into that. But if we assume it was around 32 degrees, that is cold enough to immediately induce symptoms of cold shock, which might even later result in moderate hypothermia by the time she emerged on the other side. And it depends on really how long they were there and if they were wearing clothes, all that kind of thing. Because you will lose body heat so much faster. And you know what? Blood loss is also a thing that will significantly cause body heat to be lost, like, so much quicker. But some symptoms of cold shock that I thought you guys should know were gasping, immediate gasping. You hyperventilate. Your muscles are going to stiffen, lock up, because your body's just going to start shivering, and it causes your muscles to just go. Your reflexes are slow. You might even have confusion, likely coordination loss because of that confusion. And so if you think about that, Abby's low body fat would also impact her warmth retention, the heat retention. And all these factors would have served to slow her down significantly. So if we want to be generous and say maybe this crossing took 2.5 minutes, or 3 minutes, if she's like just booking it, and she didn't, there's nothing to, cut her feet on. There was nothing like that. If we want to say everything went perfect, maybe 2.5, 3 minutes. This might even like double it. And I just don't see how that's possible for our window, because it's such a snug window with people coming on the bridge right afterward.
Based on the state's theory. Correct?
Yeah, based entirely on the state's theory. So that's what we're going with. We're pretending the state is correct here, which they can't really be, but yeah. So anyways, right. I believe we are done with the math. So you guys, if you didn't want to hear the math, you can tune in now. So according to the state's theory, the crossing was done after they had removed their clothes, or at least one of them. And so that's more than, if we assume it's 3 feet 4 inches of water, that's more than 65% of their bodies being submerged. I think it's more around 3 feet, but that's still going to be, around 60%, 60, 58% of their bodies being submerged, which is going to be the parts that are responsible for generating the most heat, like especially the blood, or the heart. It pumps blood, and that is a significant source of heat in the body. I mean, it's just, in women, they have the most natural fat stores, kind of like around their waist, their hips, just in general. So that part is going to be submerged in freezing water. Skin to skin contact with this freezing water is just going to make it, you get colder, your body temperature will lower so much faster. I cannot even stress how much faster it would be. Like, it's just, you're going to be freezing your ass off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just two more factors, I believe, or a couple more factors, I believe, that would have influenced the length that it took them to cross is the turbidity. And so turbidity is basically how well can you see into the water, like cloudiness of the water. And one thing that I know for sure is during spring melt, because it's going so much faster, because you got all this debris and stuff, the turbidity is basically you can't see anything. It's basically just maybe on a nice day you could see the rocks at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to be able to. The bottom line is you're not going to be able to see all the way to the bottom, and so that doesn't mean you can't see fish from perhaps the high bridge.
Well, I think
they contrast.
I feel from what I remember from being there, when you're on the high bridge, the new portion of the bridge extends out to that first platform, and that area under the bridge seemed to be more shallow than the rest of
more
the area.
Shallow.
Yeah, it seemed to be more shallow under the bridge.
Oh.
But
I would think it would be deeper, but that works.
No, it appeared to be, but I was there in the fall, and the weather was still nice. Each time I was there. And it's also because you're stopped since they've redone the first portion of the bridge. You get stopped at that first platform, and you are literally kind of looking down at the water, but it's right where the water meets land. So I think
kind of where those pictures I had earlier.
Yeah, it's not like I think it would appear much different if you could have gone out to, say, the third platform and looked down, which
that makes sense.
I will be doing that. But yeah, it's kind of deceptive. The pictures make it deceptive. But
yeah, I'd particularly like to know around where the supports are. Like, I feel like that would be the deeper part, just because they'd have to dig them out, and that has to. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, that's okay. No, I'm picturing what you're saying about the cloudiness of the water, and the girls, obviously, whether they have on shoes or they're barefoot. Barefoot's even worse. Trying, slowing them down, trying to see where they're placing their feet in the next step. They wouldn't be able.
Yeah, you're just feeling your way over there. That's going to take a while, especially in that sludge too. I mean, if there's rocks underneath that sludge, it's not easy, man, because you're just trying to feel around blindly. I mean, the fact that they don't have any cuts on their feet just tells me either A, they were wearing shoes, or they just didn't cross the freaking river.
Well, yeah, I mean, I those are things that I don't think a lot of. I mean, I personally had never thought about that. Because I've always been up in the air. Did they cross the creek? Or, I mean, how? Really, it wasn't until Quester went over the phone data as in depth as he did. Like, I can read it, but the math where he's doing the measuring and where it puts the girls and when really brought into perspective. Like, it is a great possibility they didn't cross this creek, and the fact that Abby had on her shoes, by looking at her shoes, there's no way those shoes went through muddy creek water. That
sludge.
Yeah. Yes, it would have been green, slimy. You wouldn't. I mean, they would just be caked. And
unless someone hosed it off somewhere, which still does not align with the timeline.
Correct. And then you bringing up no cuts on their feet if they would have crossed barefoot, because some people believe that the girls were undressed under the bridge. And there's no cut. So really,
fat chance.
Either way you go crossing the creek, it doesn't seem plausible. And that is a. I'll be honest. I always thought the girls crossed the creek up until, I would say, about 4 months ago, when I started really fine combing all of these testimony and the state's case. Oh my God. And I've really been resistant to it because that is such, that makes this case even more corrupted, even more so corrupted, because then that brings us into the realm of what the hell is this video? Is it real? Where does it come? It opens Pandora's box completely. And I'm just kind of like, I'm willing to go there because that's where the evidence that I'm seeing, that Quester's showing everybody who watches, and you're presenting this information, which was much needed. And I'm very grateful for this presentation.
Of course.
But it's eye-opening for sure. And we're just going and following what we have available. And this is where it's leading.
And the thing is, like it's kind of almost like breadcrumbs were kind of left out for the police by putting that clothing where it was, saying, oh yes, here's feasible spot because here's where the sandbar is. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of like they were like, well, yeah, this must be where it was. Let's look no further. It just seems like willful ignorance.
It does. And I think here, let's finish the last page, your last pages here, and then we'll go.
Yep, we are done, guys. We are basically done. Yeah, and so one thing I usually use whenever I crossed our river, which was literally like knee deep at most, I had to use I would use poles or like a stick to help me wade through it. Like it's just so slippery. That's bottom line. Yeah, and like I said, there's a lot of things that drift, a lot of obstructions, a lot of driftwood, a lot of fresh wood from that spring melt, because it's just that much stronger that it will be able to pull all that stuff downstream. And then finally, you will have to battle against the current, or easily, like, even if you're just trying to go straight, you're gonna battle against that current. You will easily drift downstream, like it especially if it's above your waist. Like, so, which begs the question: why wouldn't they have just let the flow of the water carry them from danger?
Oh my God,
where the bridge is, to where people are.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah, that's, I mean, the most obvious thing to me. It's like, wait, what? Oh, and I did look up that the type of gun that Rick had, it has been, I just did this out of curiosity. There is a version that is used in the military, which is specifically, like, for the Marines, which is specifically waterproof. But I believe the civilian version, which he definitely had only the civilian version, it also is it can still function after getting wet as well. I wanted to double check that, just to be like, well, if it didn't even function after getting wet, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, so all these factors would slow her down significantly, increasing her time in the cold water, increasing her chances of being seen, and increasing the odds she would have been heard. Because if you are gasping for air, if you are like an obstacle in the middle of a stream and it is flowing around you, it's going to be splashing against you. If you're moving, just in general, it's going to make noise, guys. And then finally, our final slide. I really want to say this part.
Let me flip it.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. In my strong opinion, either they didn't cross the river, or they were taken somewhere and able to recover. Either way, the state's theory is wrong, and I just really want to say that. Wrong.
Well,
and that's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
Well, I so appreciate you. Let me go through the chat and see if we have any questions.
Yeah.
I see. So there was somebody who said in the chat that hypothermia doesn't happen that fast. Well, in cold water, it does happen. Yeah. I've just looked it up. In cold water, cold water removes heat from the body 25 times faster than air of the same temperature. So,
well, yeah, I looked that up too. Yeah. So the biggest impact, it would be after they get out of the water. How soon were they killed? Because that's when within like 10 minutes, they could have moderate hypothermia. Like just based on if they're unclothed, if they had no way to get dry, that kind of thing. So sorry to interrupt. I didn't want to forget that.
No, who does? I don't think I don't believe it would have happened as fast as them while they were in the creek. It would happen. First of all, it would slow them down, and the chattering of the teeth and the shivering of the body is going to slow them down, especially when they go to exit the creek to maneuver and hoist their bodies up on that embankment, especially if they're carrying their belongings. And I don't recall the coroner or the pathologist ever I don't know if at that point, once you go into hypothermia and you're left out in the cold, especially overnight, wouldn't there be signs during an autopsy that the body was in hypothermia?
Like, wouldn't there, like, I don't know if this would happen because of all the blood loss or something, but like, wouldn't there, like, maybe their extremities, like their fingertips be blue? I don't know. I don't really, I'm not the person to ask that, but
yeah, I don't know either.
Thought, or maybe even water in the lungs from gasping, getting some water, because you're gonna stumble, you're gonna get water in your. I don't know how much, but definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, and speak for those who can't said, could hypothermia have had caused Abby to lose consciousness? Maybe maybe at some point. Abby was a tiny, fragile little human being. She was tiny,
no body fat,
and so. I mean, I don't know. That might be something that I could get Dr. Silkman to come on and speak about if he knows. But so
I think we're good. Unless you guys have questions.
Gilletta says that crossing the creek in that frigid water could make people strip their clothes off too, because they'd be stripping.
That is a definite theory. However, we see the clothes that were on the side before they crossed, so that kind of doesn't compute to me because they found them on the side, before they crossed. It's like, I mean, maybe they went back halfway through and were like, I need to take these off. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So, Quester, do you have any thoughts on the presentation? And it certainly aligns with the theory that the girls possibly did not cross the creek.
I agree. And it seems to me absolutely incredible that you've got this 5'4" person with a heart condition, pretty much heavily overweight, wading through the water with his pistol up in the air so it doesn't get wet, pushing two naked girls who are carrying all their clothes in one hand, and in the other hand, their phones. And they're going across this water and up the other side, making no marks on the bank or anything like that. I just don't believe it. It's impossible.
Yeah, and I mean,
I concur.
I mean, I know that's your guys' theory. It wasn't mine originally, and that's what's so great about all of this is because if you're open-minded, like
crowdsource.
Let me just expose her really quick. My new friend who speaks for those who cannot. I know that I do believe that she believes Rick Allen is guilty, and I just she's in here in the chat now speaking up, and she's been very vocal in the chats of our lives asking questions, and maybe with an open mind, she can change her thoughts about this case.
You know what? I like that she's here because it makes me question. She thinks of questions that we aren't going to think of, or she's going to tackle it from different angles. And it's like, oh, that is a good, point to make.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Rick is, I don't know. But all I know for sure is that his trial was effed up.
Yeah, it was.
So, yeah.
Well, from what I heard, the usual expression, they effed up with the temperature as well. Apparently, when they found the bodies, they wrapped them in those thermos wrapping. So the autopsy couldn't do anything with temperature. Totally ruined
that
it.
hurts to think about.
And it's okay. So I'm gonna here. So okay, guys, this is just brainstorming. Okay, this is not a fact. This is not anything that I'm pushing a narrative on, but it's a question that I have for Quester that came up this week in regards to last week's episode of The Vault and the roadblocks video that has been put out there, which has now been made private. So if anybody has the link for that, I've watched it. I watched it before the link was made private, but I would like to watch it again. So what was your first, so when we were discussing this, Quester, what was your first impression of the video, the roadblocks video? Do you remember what you said? Do you remember what you said to me? And
I don't remember, no.
You said this is bullshit. That there's no path off, that they had them going through a path from the Mears lot. Remember? And that they didn't have the girls going down the Mears trail to the trail and then turning left and going to the bridge in that video. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, somehow that...
Clearly amateur hour.
It was. They had them going straight out of the Mears lot and somehow walking along a cliff edge along the bank.
Okay, so that now I've been thinking about that, and I went back to the photographs of the area that they had taped off with crime scene tape right next to the Mears lot. And I thought, it's been speculated that whoever made that video had some sort of knowledge of the crime. And I'm like, is it possible? So for anybody who's in the chat right now, who's a local radar, is there a pathway from the Mears parking lot to, instead of going up the Mears trail, to the actual Monon trail, if the girls would have just cut left and went up into that like cut down field, walked into the woods to the same path, reaching the same path that Ron Logan would have used coming to and fro from his backyard in the cemetery. Because if you were to go that direction and go out, it would look like a cliff head. That would be the top portion of the ravine above the kettle where the crime scene was. And they walked to the right, it would have brought them right out to the north end of the bridge. What do you think of that?
You remember the map I gave you of the known pathways?
Yes. Oh, that's a good resource.
Yeah, that's got one on it right where you're saying.
Really? Oh my God. Okay, let me pull.
Me too.
Down that hill. Down the hill, yeah.
Oh,
and there's a small little water run down the bottom as well, probably only about a foot across. One of those little drainage ditches.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Jesus.
So is this the right one? Yeah, this is it.
See the blue one top right?
Blue one top right, yeah. Cemetery. Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you imagine just above that, and between the blue and the red one from Mears, That's where that tape was.
Yeah.
Pat Brown Park.
Now, see that this is all hypothetical. If whoever made, I personally don't know who made the roadblocks video. Does anybody in chat know who made that video?
AI. No, okay, sorry.
But it's certainly nowhere near the creek.
No, but it would. Okay, so let's go up here to where where the Mears lot is, and you see where you've got the red line, and that intersects with the blue line. If the girls would have been dropped off right there, and I'm sorry, but you're not going to convince me that a 17-year-old who's on the phone with her boyfriend is paying attention when the girls get out of the car. And based on the cell phone data, the girls had to hop out of the car. She put her car in reverse for her car to be on the Hoosier Harvest Store camera at 149. But if she's pulled in and parked here, the girls hopped out. Who's to say that they actually went straight up to the trail and walked to the bridge? They could have taken what they thought was a shortcut down this blue line, and there's no line here for it, but they could have crossed over into that pathway that leads from the cemetery, because that's not on here either, because Ron Logan could come through from the cemetery and pop right out here at the north end of the bridge.
How does this align with the phone data, though, Quester?
It aligns pretty well.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean,
the only thing is the distances would be a bit short to get to the cemetery, but if you then added on to get to, for instance, Ron Logan's house, it would fit quite well.
Well, that whole video, I know that people were saying, oh my gosh, it seems like somebody had inside knowledge of the crime scene or the crime itself. Okay, so Don't Dox Me says, put the last pic they took supposedly was at the south end of the bridge. Are you talking about Abby's photo?
The video was taken at the southeast end of the bridge.
Yeah, the video was, but there wasn't a picture. There was a picture that Libby took, but the picture of Abby, we can't, no one knows where it came from.
The one they say Libby took was taken at the north end.
Yeah. Topher said, wasn't she fighting with them at the parking lot? That is something that's been said, that Abby and Libby, that a witness, which is interesting because according to Kelsey, there was nobody else around. There was only one car in the parking lot that had the Salt Life sticker on the back, and that a witness claimed that Libby and Abby were in a screaming match. But we don't.
Which would also tie in with the faces in the car.
Mm-hmm.
There's a witness.
I know that. Say that again.
I said, if somebody saw them arguing, then there is an important witness out there.
Well, I think that there's a lot of important witnesses out there who, for whatever reason, have watched this case unfold and seen the massive media attention around it and has just chosen to stay silent.
They scared?
Scared, yeah.
Oh, and you've seen that Richard Allen.
Small community like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me see if, what I do with it? Let me me see. Is it this one? I have the video of skim.
The path of least resistance, and this is what I've always said, is there were two paths. There's a path across the bridge, down the hill, and to the edge of the creek. And it's a worn path. It's a path that if you're looking for someone, you know they're at the end of the bridge, you're going to walk the worn path first. You're not going to go off the beaten path, right?
Yeah, because
then you go the only other path that there is. That's right before you cross the bridge, which this path is known, and it goes down to the cemetery. And I can tell you back in 20.
Now, what if this path also forks off towards the Mears lot?
Does it show that on the map of the pass? I think it does. This one that forks off.
Yeah, I'm just curious if the girls thought that they were going to shortcut the trail, because I'm not convinced Betsy Blair saw them. There are too many reported girls out there on the trail that have never been spoken to and unaccounted for as witnesses in this case that were there. I know that, Carl Abbott's daughter, Maya Abbott. If you guys remember, I was in search of who Cheyenne testified. She testified to this at trial, that when she was leaving and she got to the Mears lot, there was a girl on a moped. That has come out. I was informed that was Maya Abbott, and that Maya Abbott more than likely wasn't alone, that she was with her boyfriend, Evan Fritz. That's a name I've never heard. But I was aware that Maya Abbott was out there, and her father both stated they were out there. So was she coming or was she going? And we didn't see a moped on the Hoosier Harvest Tour camera either. But
So
I believe,
all I just said one person sent in a report that they were heard arguing.
Okay, so yeah, all I said that at least one person sent in a report that they were heard arguing when they were being dropped off. And
if you remember when we did the timing, it appeared that there was 8 minutes unaccounted for at Mears, or roundabout Mears. That's more than enough time to get in an argument, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And All Eyes also says that Evan Fritz was also speculated to be the face of the Youngbridge guy. That or Daniel Pearson. And
I've not seen a picture of Evan Fritz.
I think so it's almost, I would love to get a hold of Shelby Hicks's grandfather, who stated that Shelby Hicks was out there at 1:30. But Shelby Hicks did not park at the Mears lot. She was driving a 2004 silver Impala, and she did not park at the Mears lot. And I do not believe that her and Daniel Pearson rode together. So where did Daniel Pearson park? No one ever testified to seeing him leave. And Shelby, according to Shelby's grandfather, Shelby Hicks arrived and she went down the Girard Trail first. So there was and Daniel Pearson supposedly got there around 1:30. He told people later on that he got there at 3, but he only made that time change after he became a questionable person of interest. Prior to that, he claimed that he got out there around 1:30. So and this sighting, according to the state, was at 1:53 by Betsy Blair, seeing this young bridge guy on the bridge. But we now know that time is incorrect based on Betsy Blair's Fitbit. Which pick? Who this? Who are you? Don't dox me.
Might be the Elvis Fields one.
Yeah.
I think you make a compelling case that it's Daniel Pearson.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe it's Daniel Pearson, and I think that Daniel Pearson knows that it was him. And you know, it wasn't until after the old bridge guy sketch came out that he came forward, because I believe that he thought then, well, he's in the clear because they're not looking at me. And I'm not saying that he's involved. I'm just saying he's not.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time, not being truthful. And why? And then I made some tweets this weekend about Stacey Diener's comments that if there were certain people that the defense team would have called, they would have blown up the timeline, and she knew it.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was going insane reading that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was shocked at the lack of people that the defense called. I think, why didn't they call this person? Why didn't they call that person? I couldn't understand it.
Right. So, Quester, do you want to address the Brian Moss? Because there was some people who were like, no, he was there on the 14th hiking the trails. Law enforcement wasn't allowing anybody to hike the trails that day. In fact, they were even keeping family out because Tobe Lesenby claimed he was bringing in the dogs. He was also reported to be out there on the 13th.
That's correct. So, yes.
Lester, do you want to talk about that?
Chuck it right on. He's got to have been there on the 13th. He could not have been there on the 14th. The only dogs that were around on the 14th were the friend of Lazenby's, and he entered via the cemetery. And Mike Patty said that he took his dog on the 14th.
I believe Brad German, Libby's grandpa, took his dog out there as well, and he was kept from searching. He was told to leave.
Did Brad Heath have a dog? I thought I read that.
Who?
Heath?
No, it was Brian Moss. Brian Moss was there. The girls. Which one of the was it Riley Voorhees who stated that she said hi to the dog walker?
Riley Voorhees said she saw the dog walker, but she said hi to the man who was all in black.
Okay, and this was after the 126 picture. So they seen the dog walker, then they seen the man in all black. So if you're believing these four witnesses, then you have to believe that the dog walker was walking the trail directly in front of Bridge Guy. Bridge Guy would have been following Brian Moss with his dog. And then later in the day, David Riley was there with his dog. As a matter of fact, hold on, guys.
But it's an interesting thing with that, because if I remember rightly, Riley said she saw the dog walker leaving and the man in black arriving. But my own opinion is that she's got them around the wrong way. She saw the dog man arriving and the man in black leaving.
Yeah, because wasn't his white truck being parked out there?
It was. It was, yes.
It
parked on the other
changes
side
that
of
time frame.
Yeah, it was parked in that park on the other side of Freedom Bridge.
Okay, so here is a.
Think about it a lot.
David Riley replays this day last year quite often.
I was on the trail the day that they were killed.
And did you see anything?
No. I talked to the police twice and gave them DNA and all that stuff. But yeah, I was at the other end of the trail. They were by the bridge, the high bridge. I was by the blue bridge.
That's all of it that I have. I can't, and it won't get any louder. No, Brian Moss is, well, first of all,
I think about it a lot.
if we start compiling a list.
David Riley replays this day last year quite often.
I was on the trail the day that they were killed.
And did you see anything?
No. I talked to the police twice and gave them DNA and all that stuff. But yeah, I was at the other end of the trail. They were by the bridge, the high bridge. I was by the blue bridge.
So that's David Riley. He was walking his dog and he parked at the Mears lot. But he claimed he parked at the Mears lot and went towards Freedom Bridge, not the Monon High Bridge.
Yeah, at one point he said that he parked off the highway west of Freedom Bridge at 13:30. That's 1:30. And that's what leads me to think that Rayleigh got them the wrong way round.
So can one of my mods up at the very top of the chat, or actually Fungi, can you post, people are, she doesn't use her YouTube channel, but she does have a YouTube channel. But Fungi, can you post your Twitter link and your YouTube channel in the chat for them?
You can just click my name for my YouTube channel, I think.
Yeah. Well, and then post her. Yeah. So guys, click her name. You can subscribe to her channel, and then you post your Twitter, please.
Here we go.
Do we have Riley's vehicle? I can't remember if we have his vehicle. What type of vehicle he drove? Right.
Not Riley. You mean well, Riley walked in. I think you mean Brian Moss. Yes.
Brian Moss drove a white truck.
Yes.
And here, let me see.
Yeah, it's not letting me post links, just FYI.
Okay, well, she's Great Lakes Fungi on Twitter.
Yeah, and I'm trying to.
Jack, stop. Let me see here. I have. So this right here is a picture of Brian Moss with his dog next to the bridge. And then I also have
in a flannel shirt.
I believe this is an image of I believe this is Dave McCain. And then I also have the post about Brian Moss being there. They said it was on the 14th, but we're pretty convinced it's the 13th. And where did I put that? Oh, it might be in here. Jack, stop. Oh, whoops. There we go. This is Brian Moss with his dog. This is Doug Rice, the guy who had boots on the ground and was going around investigating the case on his own. There's a plethora of information. He says, my buddy saw a white truck at the Freedom Bridge on the 13th around 1:30. This fellow has a white truck, and a deputy told my friend the white truck belonged to man with the dog. I also showed the pic to the witness. She was not positive, but thought it was likely him as well. But without talking to him directly, I cannot prove it was him. Just pretty sure it was. And at any rate, she saw this man and his dog on the trails shortly before they ran into BG. So, and I'm assuming over here on the left is an image of his truck.
Yeah.
So there's a plethora of people out here that day that nobody talked to, or didn't look into, the defense didn't look into how they screwed up the state's timeline. So we have okay, it was testified at trial that Abby was using social media through Libby's phone, social media accounts and such. Yes, but there were also multiple people who said that the Patties gave Libby a phone, or gave Abby a phone that she could use. It wasn't necessarily paid as a phone that you could make phone calls from, but if she could connect to Wi-Fi, she could access her social media from it. There's multiple references by law enforcement that they were trying to call the girls' phones. There were multiple references to the girls weren't answering their phone. And then Delphi docs reminded me yesterday that there was a statement made in the geofencing map that there were two phones. And then I've showed the list of devices that law enforcement collected in the area that Nick McClellan listed in some of his filings, and I almost believe it was accidental. Oopsie. That he listed those things, and there's multiple phones. So I'm a firm believer that Abby had a phone. I cannot believe for 1 minute that, okay, teenage girls are funny to begin with. I raised two of them, and I don't believe that all the time that the girls were together, that Libby is going to, for one, give up her phone to Abby to sit for a half hour or an hour to text her boyfriend Logan, or to sit and scroll through Facebook or social media or Snapchat. I mean, that would be like, give me back my phone. Give me back my phone. Well, here, use this one. That is how it works. Number two, I don't believe that when they went out to the trails that day, that Libby was going to be the only one communicating with people somewhere else. Like, if she's trying to get people to meet them out there on the bridge, which I do know that the day before she was contacting multiple people trying to get them to come out there to the trails. And they're both off of school. So this scenario of Libby having a phone means she possibly had a working phone, because wouldn't she be out there texting to her boyfriend? And when Logan Holder was confronted about Libby having a phone, he refused to answer. He said, you guys have to find that out yourself. Well, if she didn't have a phone, the answer would simply be no.
I like to call him Skeletor. Just in my head. I guess not in my head anymore.
Who did whose bio? Yes, Candy, I believe that in Abby's pocket, that is a phone. Is there a video of law enforcement searching RA's house along with audio? Well, if any of them had on body cams, there would be. We're going to play like hell to get that. So I want to also say, if anybody out there, first of all, I'm just going to recommend from here on out, because this is what I've been doing. Every time I come across something on YouTube that I feel is important to the case, I download it. And I use 4K downloader. It's free, and you can download for free up to 10 videos a day That way, if something gets scrubbed from YouTube, you still have it. I was told today that the 911 call that was made by Taya Miller used to be available, but the link that it was placed under has now been removed. It's gone. And Quester and I are going to be working on this audio, the scanner audio. And there's a portion of the audio that's been lost or removed from the internet.
That's so weird how that seems to happen so much in Delphi.
Yeah. We speak for those who can't. We don't know. And I believe it's three the phones that were in the geofencing were 3 unidentified phones, and they weren't associated to Libby's phone. So I know.
What about victim phone 2?
Logan's was identified. It wasn't one. They weren't his.
Right. Victim's phone. Yeah, that was something else that was mentioned. Victim's phone 2 was stated in the geofencing. So that's like another slip up. But we are trying to track, if anybody has the scanner audio, email it to me. I mean, I think that we have everything that's available, but we're missing, it would be a portion of the audio where an officer who has the call number of 601 is communicating on the airwaves, and it's also during the incident in the cemetery with Pat Brown. That's the section of the audio that we need. If anybody has that, email it, please. I do know that Garrett Kurtz was told by law enforcement that his phone was in the geofence. Now, were they lying to him? I don't know. His excuse was that he sold phones and traded phones all the time, so anybody in that area could have had his phone. I don't know. That's what law enforcement told him. And I can say this, that after all of the conversations that I've had with Garrett Kurtz, oh, all eyes. Do you have it all?
All of it?
All of it? do you have the my girl?
Do you have the bit where somebody says, "Are you still down over the hill?" That would be a brilliant piece if you manage to save that.
Okay, who dis? I'm telling you, All Eyes is amazing. She is the Delphi library. She has my email, but who dis? Please email that to me, because we plan on starting to cover this portion starting next Monday. Oh my gosh. Well, who dis? We are going to be good friends. Who dis says he's a hoarder of audio and video.
I'm going to like him.
Yes.
My man.
I just put it in the chat, who dis. Thank you so much. Oh, Jamie. Oh, who dis is a girl. Okay, we're going to be good friends, young lady. Yeah, we have to start being hoarders, because this stuff is disappearing.
Yeah, the sooner we can get it, the better. That'll give us a lot more time to work through it.
I have a budget. Oh, sorry. for that a lot. I didn't realize the mic was on.
Okay, is that in the Google, your Google Drive that you shared? I just posted my email. It's casebykase10@gmail.com. I'll put it on the screen. Well, I think we've kept everybody long enough. What do you guys think?
Probably.
Thanks, mods, for posting that. Well, I will, first of all, let me thank you, Great Lakes Fungi, for being here today. This is very
informative. Anyone has any questions on the math or whatever? I kind of stumbled a little bit on that. Just ask on Twitter. I'll help clear it up and stuff. But sorry.
There'll be a lot of, hold on one second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. Thanks, Topher. There'll probably be questions here in the chat too after the live, because we have everybody who watches the replay. Guys, if you haven't went out and hit the like button, please do. Now that I've dug my heels in, I really want to grow this community and grow this channel. So all of your likes and sharing of the video helps. Thank you, Quester, as always. And you and I will be going back and forth this week. I'm going to go over and I'm going to send you what Whodis sends me, and I'll send you to what All Eyes has, and then we can start working on it this week. I did start a transcript off some of it, but if she has other portions that we don't have, I'll probably have to scrap that one and start a new one. But I'm sure you'll be doing your own graphs and things too. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Yep. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And again, I apologize for that link going up last night like I was going to do a live, but I will be doing that live this week. So the next time you see it, it's for real. And I'm looking forward to it, because I just feel like all of us mean girls who are accused of being mean girls need to come together, and it'll be
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
I know. I'm just, we got to stick together, us girls. So thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, mods. Thanks, guests. And I will see everybody later.